My name is Andrew Miller, editor over at hook'emheadlines.com. With me is Shane Black, contributor over at hook'emheadlines.com. Coming back with our second video of the week, but this is our first basketball show. Well, really ever for the Hook'em Horns YouTube or Hook'em Horns Show YouTube channel. We're hoping to get some good basketball content out this season, and we're starting by previewing the 22-23 season, which starts here in about 4 days. Season opener at the brand new Moody Center, which I've got my background behind me for it. Already in the mood for it. I'm excited to see the new building. But yeah, opening up against UTEP on November 7th. But yeah, we're going to give our kind of preview predictions, talking some specifics on the upcoming season. Shane's done some good work over at hook'emheadlines.com on individual player previews for some of the kind of the core 10 or 12 rotation guys. Link kind of the general basketball area below. But yeah, Shane, if you want to give some of your thoughts coming out of last season and where you feel like the program is headed.
Yeah. So certainly was a fan of the Chris Beard hire, and although round of 32 exit is not where Beard and the fan base wants this program to be, I thought it was a great step in the right direction, considering this team hadn't won a tournament game since, I believe, 2015. They certainly didn't win one under Shaka Smart. It was 15 or 16 was the last win. So getting the monkey off the back in year one, I think, was huge. And yeah, I like what Beard is doing, kind of ground up recruiting. You see a lot of videos on the Texas basketball Instagram page. He's getting his players involved in the community. They're reaching out to the fan base. They have the student section, which they're calling the Corral this season, which in the new Moody Center is going to be the first rows, 270 degrees around the court. So I think that's pretty cool. If we can get fan buy-in, it's going to be one of the tougher places to play in the country. So I think everything is trending up for the program. And just as a whole, it seems like, the past decade when it comes to Texas basketball, Texas basketball always begins right as the Longhorns are kind of limping into a finish on the football field. This year is like a little different. It's been up and down, but it is a nice breath of fresh air because you feel like all your goals are still ahead of you on the basketball court. And I love basketball season, and I really think this team has a great mix of returning veterans, youthful underclassmen, a couple key transfers added. And I think they're going to be a real threat, not only in the Big 12, but on the national stage as well.
Yeah, Shane, you mentioned it, like excitement building around the program, getting buy-in from the fans, the new arena, kind of some of the excitement that Chris Beard and this program is building around campus and around the fan base. It is definitely more lively than I've covered Texas since I believe it was the second or third year under Shaka Smart. I think there were 6 seasons under Smart.
Yeah.
And, by the time I'd even started covering the basketball program, you could kind of feel, and I mean, I've been a Big 12 basketball fan for a while, so you kind of feel the fans getting a little bit worn down by the results on the court from Shaka's teams pretty early on. And by the time you had that tournament loss to, don't want to talk about it too long, but Abilene Christian a couple years ago, it was last year. Jesus, was that last year? Feels so long ago.
2021. Wow.
Yeah. That's hard to believe, but yeah, it was time for a change. And between the potential of this arena, you had mentioned kind of the new layout of the student section, just the potential with this program, you got to hope that the home court advantage is a little bit more lively because Texas basketball seems like it's been a sleeping giant for a while. But yeah, Texas is coming off a pretty good season. I think that there was a lot, there were a lot of games where you would hope the result was a little bit better, a little bit of something left to be desired, but you might get that a lot under a first-year head coach. And Texas finishes up last season, I believe, 21-12, going 10-8 in Big 12 play. The season ended on a round of 32 loss to Purdue, 81-71. And, the Purdue loss, like that did expose some of the issues that Texas had to rectify during the offseason. And I think this is a good segue into what we're talking about next. I'll be honest, like, I think that Chris Beard fixed some of the issues that needed fixing, and he's building up the program in a good way. I'll be honest, though, there were some things that I was hoping Texas would get fixed that they did not.
Yeah.
One of the big team needs, I thought, was kind of getting a rim protector that, could contend. I get that Purdue's got had 2 7-footers, and that's just, that's just not what you get every single day, especially in the Big 12. But we didn't really add anyone new in the front court that's, kind of a true back to the basket or rim protecting big man. But again, good segue. Some of the big additions this offseason, some of, especially in the backcourt, you gotta love. I think it all starts with Tyrese Hunter, Iowa State transfer, reigning Big 12 Freshman of the Year, comes in. I loved watching Tyrese down the stretch last season. He's a really fun point guard to watch, commands the court really well. Can get to the basket, is a pretty good perimeter defender. He's got a decent mid-range shot. The three-point shot was off and on last season. You got to hope he gets to at least around 35%, I think, this year. But again, he's a huge addition. You're getting, I think my favorite addition is probably, my personal favorite is probably going to be Dylan Mitchell. As big as Tyrese Hunter is, you're getting a top 5 pick potentially in the NBA draft. Kind of play like a wing forward type role. Could play the 3 or the 4. Even if you're going small ball, I guess could play the 5, but that'd be going pretty small. 5-star kid coming in, I believe Montverde Academy. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then along with that, you got Serge Jabari Rice, senior shooting guard wing coming in from New Mexico State. Good two-way guy. He can play. He can actually be like more of a secondary facilitator. He averaged, I think, somewhere around 3 assists per game last season, 2.5 or 3.
Yeah, 3.1. I got it up right here.
Yeah, he was pretty solid in that regard. I guess without getting too deep into some of these guys here, though, he's a solid defender. I mean, he had good postseason experience playing with Teddy Allen, Timmy's brother, with New Mexico State last season. Their little, I guess, mini tournament run. They were beat round of 32, though. With that, you got Arterio Morris, 5-star point guard. Overcame some off-the-court issues, still with the team heading into the season. Kid's got a ton of talent, 6'3", and 5-star kid coming out of Dallas Kimball. Another NBA caliber talent. Dribbling skills, just keeps the ball on a string. Very physical in getting to the basket, good on-ball defender. He adds to this just insane depth that Texas is going to have at point guard. Those are some of the bigger additions. Loss-wise, I don't think you can go without mentioning guys like Courtney Ramey, Andrew Jones. Those are probably some of the bigger losses. A few names I think are slipping my mind here.
Devin Askew, who left the program.
Devin Askew, right?
He's a guy that I thought Beard might be able to build up, but he Texas fans know this. He wouldn't even look at the basket last season, so not like a major loss, but also Trey Mitchell, who was gone since midseason. So, I think it hinges on those 2 guys you mentioned, Ramey and Jones, who had been with this program for 4 and 5 years, respectively. So,
yeah. Jace
Febris as well. Going off of the loss of Jones and Ramey, Texas did bring in a good amount of talent in the backcourt to replace those losses. And I'm really excited to see Tyrese Hunter in a Longhorns uniform. I was a big Courtney Ramey fan. How could you not be? Also Andrew Jones, who isn't a fan of him. It was starting to get a little stale, and I'm excited to see kind of new blood. And I think Marcus Carr and Tyrese Hunter have a chance to combine to be one of the best backcourts in the country. Hunter specifically, no matter what happens with his jump shot, which has been a little shaky, you mentioned the presence he has on the court. He is an alpha male. He's going to lead this offense with strong intentions, and he does it on both ends of the floor. Beard in a preseason press conference said that he is a top 5 on-ball defender in the country, in his opinion, and they've really made strides off the ball. Obviously, that might be a little far-fetched considering, his stature, but he's going to be up in your grill, and I think we're going to see a lot of Hunter kind of guarding 90 feet, really getting teams out of their offense early, which is just going to help the whole roster out. But Matt Norlander of CBS Sports is a guy that, when it comes to college basketball, I really pay attention to. And when this move first happened, he said that the scouts he was talking to said that Hunter is a consistent 3-point shot away from being a first-round NBA draft pick. So
yeah,
I know he's been working hard on that from what we've seen in the offseason. There have been videos of him coming out just knocking down 3 after 3 in an empty gym with no one guarding you. It's completely different. He did hit a 3 in the scrimmage against Arkansas, but yeah, I have high hopes. Even if he doesn't get to that, you said 35% from deep, I think that's a good target range. Even if he's still floating around 33%, I still think he could be an all-conference type of player just with what he brings in every other facet of the game. So I'm really excited for Hunter. I think he's going to be a really fun watch.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything encouraging about his 3-point shots, that I believe the final 2 months of the season, he was shooting around 35, 36% from 3. So progresses the season went along. He had a slow start. I remember that last season. He had a slow start in terms of just not just shooting from beyond the arc, but just his shot in general. And so it seems like he found a groove, especially when Iowa State, I believe they made it to the Sweet 16 last season. So, and he was obviously a very integral part of that. Top 5 defender in the country. I mean, I get I get Chris Beard's trying to pump up his players, and I do think that Tyrese Hunter is probably one of the more underrated perimeter defenders in the Big 12. I believe he was top 5 in the conference in steal percentage last season. Defensive box plus minus north of 3.5. Like those are good metrics that you're looking for out of a plus perimeter defender. And while he's not the lengthiest defender that you'll find, he doesn't have the length of like a Marcus Carr or even an Arterio Morris. He's still pretty good on-ball defender that doesn't really get lost a whole lot. You don't see a whole lot of people blow by him. Off-ball, there were some things to work on last season, but it's good to hear that he's making strides in that regard.
Yeah, when it comes to off-ball defense, I think the hope is with the younger athletic players, like that's just something they need to be coached up on. And there really is no better coach than Chris Beard to help you out with off-ball defense. So, yeah, I think as long as he kind of stays within the system and follows Beard's word, that won't be as much of an issue this season as it was last season. Because he reminds me of like one of those ball hawk defensive backs in football where they're just selling out for the interception every time, and it can cost you in the long run. But yeah, I'm really excited for Hunter. And you were mentioning Mitchell earlier. There is a chance that he can be like a top 5 pick that you said right now. And I don't think you're going to find a mock draft that has him out of the lottery right now. So that means if for him to not be a lottery selection in the 2023 NBA draft, something would seemingly have to go wrong, which is a decent spot to be in, like that means you got a big talent on your hands. I think it's just really important that he plays within this system, knows that he has to realize he's not the guy that needs to go out and get you 15 points a night. He's not going to be doing a lot of facilitating of the offense. I wouldn't even imagine, we'll get to our projected starting 5s. When Hunter, Carr, and Timmy Allen are on the court, Mitchell's going to be the 4th option on offense, at least in my opinion. He should be. I think he's going to get a lot of his points on, off-ball movement, backdoor cuts, offensive rebounds, which against Arkansas, which was a team filled with talented freshmen, he kind of stood out as the most athletic guy, was going up, getting offensive rebounds, a couple putback dunks. So I think he's gonna scrap, and especially early in the season, it's not going to be a lot of drawn up stuff for Mitchell, and we're going to really see kind of maybe not his ego, but where his head is at. Being such a highly rated recruit, leading Montverde to a national championship in his senior season, and coming into a Texas program where he himself has preached, winning over everything, and that's what the program is all about. So we'll see how he falls into place. But early signs are that, he really looks up to these older guys, and I think that's just only going to help him in the long run.
Yeah, Dylan's, you're right, going to have his head on straight if you want to look at it that way. Heading into the season, he's going to get a lot of opportunities to score in the front court. That's for sure. I'm interested to see how he mixes in, because I'll mention this as the video goes along. I do have concerns about the deep shooting ability of this team, and because he's got to work on a 3-point shot a little bit. That's one of the areas of his game that needs some polish before he enters the NBA draft. And he's a really capable inside scorer. Like, the dude's got moves, and he's really quick. Within about 6 to 10 feet from the basket. Good. I mean, obviously he's very tall, good vertical, can get up, get some open looks from the mid-range, can get to the basket. He's good at drawing contact and getting to the free throw line too, a good free throw shooter. So he's got a lot of tools inside the arc to put up some points for Texas. Yeah, so I think that's good for the kind of the additions and the loss as part of it. I kind of want to talk about some of the bigger games on the schedule. I don't want to harp too much on the non-conference slate, because it matters more when it comes to Big 12 tournament time, NCAA tournament time, for how Texas is ultimately able to meet expectations this season.
Yeah.
But it's hard to overlook some of the games on the non-con. Starts actually just a couple weeks against Gonzaga at the Moody Center. I'm excited for that game. That's to get such a good opponent that, hey, right now is apparently in talks with the Big 12 to potentially join. That game, while it was extremely exciting before, that definitely adds something to it. What are some of your thoughts headed into that game?
Yeah, we saw Texas travel up to. They didn't play in the home arena of Gonzaga, but somewhere pretty close. And their student section brought it. That was a key difference. I mean, Gonzaga got out to a 10, 12-point lead and really held that number throughout the whole game last season. But a key difference in that game was the Gonzaga students. So I'm hoping in the Moody Center, these Texas students can be a real difference. And I think they can. Obviously, Drew Timme is going to be the talk of this one. Absolutely torched Texas last season. I don't have the numbers, but I think he scored somewhere upwards of 30 points. And yeah, it was layup after layup after. It was like he was running like a Mikan drill, just drop step on the right side, drop step on the left side, layup. It was bad. So
yeah, 37 points.
Yeah, that needs to be
19 from the field.
The good thing about that is you have the tape on it. Chris Beard is certainly, that's not something you delete. You run through that, you show guys like Christian Bishop, who were defending him a lot last year, hey, this is what we did wrong. This is what we got to do this time. And yeah, I personally, I think Gonzaga is a top 10 team in the country, but I don't think they're like a top 3 type team. I think Julian Strawther and Nolan Hickman both have to take big steps. And I mean, Timme isn't surrounded by guys like Chet, like Andrew Nemhard, like a Jalen Suggs. And I wonder if that's going to make a difference. But, yeah, I'm really excited for that game. And certainly the biggest early test of the season. And I wouldn't be surprised if, Texas is favored in some places going into that one. But, yeah, what are your original thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the preseason polls, Gonzaga is anywhere between a top 8 to a top 15 team. A lot of it just for Gonzaga at this point is just brand name. You just expect Gonzaga to be good. They're usually a perennial Final Four contender. I still think they could make it that far this season. But yeah, they're not as proven as they have in the last few seasons. There's not as many guys that you've heard everyday college hoop stars with that team anymore. I will say it is one of multiple non-conference tests that I guess if you're including the SEC Big 12 Challenge where we face Tennessee former head coach Rick Barnes. There's some decent tests on the schedule this season. I like that we get Gonzaga at home. Texas was much more capable at home than on the road during the non-con last season. And yeah, hopefully we can find a different way to limit the touches that Drew Timme gets inside in the first place. I think there's ways that you have to double him from the inside out and, get some of these newer Gonzaga guards and wings, put them to the test instead of letting Drew Timme get, God, that had to have been his season high.
It was bad. It was every possession. So easy too, which I mean, I couldn't imagine Chris Beard put in that locker room post game, because that's obviously prides himself on the defensive end of the floor, and Drew Timme made them look like they weren't even there.
Yeah. It is interesting though, because I think that's going to put the front court to the test right away. But a few other games on the schedule that I'm really looking forward to. You got the Jimmy V Classic. I believe that's early December against Illinois. That one's at MSG. Big 12 SEC Challenge, January 28th. We hit the road, I believe, to face Tennessee in Knoxville. A few of the other more significant non-conference games, you got Creighton in the Big 12 Big East battle. That is December 1st. And then you've also got, I believe it's Stanford Pac-12 Coast to Coast Challenge on December 18th. That one is actually right here in Dallas at the American Airlines Center, but should still be a pretty strong showing for the Texas crowd in that one. Conference slate, you got your usual home and home. Going to be some big games this season against, because I think the top like 6 in the Big 12 this season, as it's kind of become a regular thing in the last decade or so, the top 6 usually all top 25 teams. But the TCUs of the world, the Kansases, Baylors, you're going to have some, I think there's a lot of buzz around some programs this season that I wouldn't necessarily say we're down, but the TCUs of the world, the OUs, Oklahoma State, all teams that could be potential top 25 teams that might not have the same buzz around those programs in the last few years as they do this season. So you could have some pretty good road environments in the Big 12 this year. But anyway,
I think that's fair. I would just say, kind of in a general landscape, that Big 12, I think once again is the best conference in college basketball. You can say that for the past couple of seasons now. I do think that the league always has a lot of parity, but I'm not as impressed with Baylor and Kansas. With that said, I still think they're 2 top 10 teams, but I just don't think they're unbeatable. I don't think we're going to see a 16-2 team win this conference. I think it might be more of a 14-4 mark, which gives Texas kind of a chance to push some people around. With that said, every game's going to be a battle. There really are no pushovers. But yeah, so I don't think there's that one true dominant team, but like you just mentioned, this league's gonna probably get 7 bids to the NCAA tournament with 6 teams who are seeded as a top 8 seed. So
yeah, well, you get Oklahoma State was on a tournament ban last season, so they're probably a tournament team. I would say and they've kind of been down for a few years now. Kansas State probably is the worst team in the conference.
Yeah, I'd agree.
They're kind of in a rebuilding year. Jerome Tang is the new head coach there, correct?
That sounds right. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, maybe they surprised some people. Kansas State tends to do that in basketball and football.
Yep.
But yeah,
regardless, Manhattan's a tough place to play, whether that's the 100th ranked team in KenPom or the 2nd ranked. Going into Manhattan, Kansas is not fun, especially when it's going to be damn cold outside whenever Texas does end up traveling up there.
Yeah, that's true. I'm excited for the Big 12 slate as always, because you just get so many entertaining games. But yeah, the non-con, like I said, you're getting down to it right away. Creighton's a pretty good team. Illinois is probably a top 25 team. They've been good the last few seasons under Brad Underwood. And obviously the Zags. So
yeah, Yeah, I think Creighton has a chance to actually win the Big East. I'm pretty high on Creighton. They Andrew Nemhard's brother, who I mentioned, was at Gonzaga. His younger brother Ryan was out for the season last year, but he's going to be one of the best point guards in the country. So that'll be interesting. Him and Tyrese matching up. But yeah, I think Creighton could be really good. We don't have to spend long on this at all. But there is a guy in the Texas basketball community that writes a lot about the Longhorns, and he always is pretty negative. One kind of thought he had that I gave some credence to was he was still complaining about the out of conference schedule because yeah, we have those 4 big games: Illinois, Tennessee, Creighton, Gonzaga, but the other 8 or so are all against like quad 4 type teams. There's no like quad 2 or quad 3 like quality mid major sprinkled in there. Personally, I'm under the belief, why would you want to play a really strong mid major, Gonzaga aside, because that just I think that's a trap waiting to happen. But what are your thoughts on that? The other 8 non-conference games being pretty low level, probably Texas winning by 20 to 30 points each time.
Yeah, I think it depends on. I think a lot of that depends on how you schedule, like the specific dates, how you ladder it out. I mean, I'm a fan of having the Gonzaga game at the Moody Center so early in the season, as long as you play well. I'm not
Yeah.
even if you don't win that game, if you have a high quality game at the Moody Center, you have a good turnout. That can kind of set the tone for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that. I mean, from a strength of schedule perspective, Texas has at least they did under Shaka Smart. They tended to drop a couple of those
Yeah.
every once in a while. And so I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of because they played up to the competition if they were playing non-con usually. A few games aside, man, I guess it just depends so much on the. I'm just stuttering here because it's such an open discussion.
It is like it is weird because how much do those strength of schedule points will they really raise you if you're playing the 156th team in Ken Palm compared to like the 225th team? It is kind of splitting hairs at that point, but it is something interesting to think about because I mean there are going to be games in the Moody Center that, especially after Texas gets going, when they play, whoever, if Texas A&M Commerce on December 27th, I assume that game's not going to have many fans, At some point, you just have to play those games, though. So I don't think it's really a huge issue when it comes to Beard. And I think it was Rodney Terry, the scheduler, I believe. But
yeah, I mean, I will say that based off what you were kind of saying about the A&M Commerce game, I've always been a fan of the idea that, especially given how quickly Big 12 play just throws you in a gauntlet after New Year's, sometimes before, depending on how the schedule falls. But last year, I believe they played Incarnate Word as their last game, and then Texas actually got off to a nice start in Big 12 play. I'm a fan of the idea of if you want to make the comparison, like when you schedule an FCS opponent before your big rivalry game in football.
yeah,
I do like that before conference play. I'm also not a huge fan of scheduling a big time non-conference game at home during winter break because you're not going to have a great home court advantage. So from that perspective, if you're going to schedule a big game, do it when there's some buzz around the school's athletics. Do it in mid-November, maybe early December. Maybe try to keep it out of Thanksgiving break time. But yeah,
great point. Yeah.
Texas, and you get such a good quality, so many quality opponents in the Big 12 that you don't really have to worry about strength of schedule as much as you would if you were playing in the Pac-12 in a down year, or I guess the Big 10, ACC are always pretty good, but yeah, SEC,
No,
even if it's down here,
I think it's. I mean, you look at it; it's pretty black and white. If you win 2 of those 4 tough non-con games, you don't lose any of the ones you're supposed to win, and then you go 9-9 in the Big 12. You're going to be like a 8 seed in the tournament, So it's kind of laid out there for you. But yeah, I agree that point about scheduling big games, making sure, there are students on campus. I think that is a very valid point. And if it certainly, it has to factor into what they do. If it doesn't, they're doing it wrong.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, let's kind of move on now. Talk about doing our projected starting fives, and I guess this could be a little bit of a difference in philosophy between the two of us. But I'll let you go ahead and get started on what you think what you think the starting five should be, or maybe what it will be, whatever.
Yeah. So, I'd be shocked if we didn't agree on 4 of the 5. I think Marcus Carr and Tyrese Hunter in the backcourt is a shoe-in. Timmy Allen's obviously going to be there, and I would expect Dylan Mitchell to be there in like the pseudo power forward 4-man type role. If you would have asked me a week ago, I would have said Christian Bishop 100% is going to be the starting 5. But in the scrimmage against Arkansas, Dylan Disu started ahead of Bishop. Bishop came in 3 minutes into the game, so I don't know if that was kind of just getting Disu like his leg, like just getting him confident. Obviously that was last season. But yeah, I wrote about this in both my preview pieces for both Bishop and Disu. But I said it really doesn't matter who starts because I think they're gonna split the 40 minutes given to the pseudo center on this team, and I think it's gonna be like 21-19. Like I think they're gonna play pretty much an equal amount of minutes. Whoever has the hot hand, whoever's playing more confident, whatever the matchup is, might depend on who closes out the game. But I honestly don't think it matters a whole lot. I would go with Bishop just because he did start 20 of the 21 games to end the regular season and tournament play last year. And I think if Dylan Disu turns out to play like he did when he was a sophomore at Vanderbilt, where he averaged 15 points and 9 rebounds, he would be obviously he's not going to have those same numbers, but if he brings that to the table this season, shoots well from deep, 36%, he was 36.9%, I believe. He would be in an unbelievable 6-man. So I think that could be a major boost to the second unit, something that Christian Bishop doesn't have in his game. Disu has the higher ceiling, and that's almost why I would want him coming off the bench. He can help boost that second unit. But yeah, I think it's splitting hairs, but I would go with Bishop in the starting 5.
Yeah, you make it. I mean, well, yeah, you bring up the interesting point of like who does start at the 5. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a shoe in for Hunter and Carr to be the 1-2 in the backcourt. On the wing, I'll be honest. I think there's multiple ways you can go. This is where I think you'd like to have maybe like an Andrew Jones back as someone that is a really good like wing defender and someone that can space the floor. And I really think the only person that you have on this roster that can do that to any sort of reliable level is probably Sir'Jabari Rice. I've pondered him starting at the 3, but again, not getting too deep into that. So I think that is a way you could go. I do think it's going to be Dylan Mitchell at the 3 to start the season, just because Timmy Allen has to play at the 4 or the 5. He doesn't. I don't think he's very good. If he gets drawn out to the perimeter, offense or defense, that's not your ideal situation. I think start with Bishop at the 5 to start the season. I'd like to see, because Dylan Disu looked like he's made some significant strides during the offseason. Heard a lot about how much he's improved. Because coming off that, what was it, ACL surgery that he had at Vandy? Yeah. He didn't have the same bounce in his game, didn't have the same confidence in his shot, wasn't blocking as many shots. And I think that's what Texas really needs, more floor spacing and more rim protection. And so, we're going to get into X factors later, so I'll dig more into this. But I want to see Disu come along as the season moves along. He needs to replace a lot of what Texas was hoping to get last season out of Trey Mitchell. And so, yeah, you're going to run into just like a clog in the front court, in the paint, if you have Timmy Allen, Dylan Mitchell, and Christian Bishop all not able to space the floor.
100%. Yeah, Disu has, compared to Bishop, he has the much higher ceiling but I also believe he has the lower floor. So I like what you said. I think it should be Bishop to start, and then depending how Disu plays, you can slowly move him into that role. Or even as I mentioned earlier, he might not even have to start, but if he's I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy closing out close games at the center.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. This is a good problem to have, though. Like, there are 7. You mentioned Serge Jabari Rice. I agree with your sentiment there. Even you could say Arterio Morris. He's not going to crack by Carr Hunter, but there are 8 guys on this team who are feasible starting players on any given night, which is definitely a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, you got if Hunter comes along, then you've arguably got 4 NBA talents in the backcourt because I think Brumbaugh could have an NBA future, but he's just.
Yeah, I mean, I think down the line that's certainly a fair argument. I could see him being like a 3-year player and then going. I have high hopes for him for sure.
He's a good on-ball defender. And what is he, like 6'3", 6'4", can play point guard?
Yeah, he's lanky too. That helps.
Yeah, he's got that modern point guard build for the NBA. But yeah, anyway, I think like the starting rotation is interesting. I'll keep harping on the point that I really wish. I mean, it's all hindsight, but that Beard got another big man out of the portal during the offseason. But again, that's an irrelevant point now because season starts in 4 days. So next thing I want to get to, and we're running a little long here. Who are some of your let's do 1 or 2. Who are some of your breakout players for the team?
Yeah, so I think, Arterio Morris flashed it in the scrimmage against Arkansas. I think he is the guy to go with here. You mentioned consensus 5-star out of Kimball, keeps the ball on a string, and on Saturday against Arkansas showed he can shoot the lights out. He led the team with 19 points. He was 4 of 6 from deep, and he had a couple blow-bys to the basket that ended in dunks. So on the offensive end of the floor, he showed that he can score from all 3 levels. And when you look at this Texas team, if Hunter and Carr aren't shooting the ball well, the court really shrinks. And if Morris can turn into a guy who's creeping towards a 40% shooter from deep, that massively increases what everyone else can do on the offensive end, because having to chase that guy around, coming way out on him, he's quick enough to where like you got to be ready for the blow by, but if he also has the jump shot, he becomes a very tough guard. And of course, he has some off the court issues going on. I don't think we really want to address much of that or speculate. I saw Beard was asked about it today. So was Morris, and it was, we took it to the highest powers of the University of Texas. They're handling this, and that's all we can say, which is, I think, the way to go about it right now. But assuming that he plays a full season this year, I think with a strong season, he could be a guy who ends up being a one and done straight to the NBA almost. I'm not comparing him to this player, but you remember Devin Booker coming off the Kentucky bench, then was a lottery pick. I don't think this Texas team is nearly as talented as that, I believe, 2013 Kentucky team. But on a roster where Morris, even if he plays really well, I don't think is going to crack the starting 5 just because of how we're constructed. I think he could be a one and done if he shows that he's a real threat from all 3 levels.
Yeah, that is true. I do really like Terrio's game. Hope that whatever's going on off the court again. And just to say what they were addressing today, it was a lot of saying that they can't comment on it. Terrio's lawyer said to not comment on it. They took it to the university. But hope that whatever is going on off the court that gets resolved, you can move on, have a good season. Because, man, yeah, in terms of like NBA upside, I know this because like Dylan Mitchell has a lot of NBA upside, but I'll be honest, I think Terrio has more. Where it's like you got some mixture here of like, I don't like this comparison a whole lot, but like I think you got some comparison here of like a weird hybrid of like Donovan Mitchell and Ja Morant, where it's like his handles are probably more on the Donovan Mitchell side. Some of his athletic traits, though, while they're not on the level of Ja Morant when he was drafted yet, they're similar. And he plays really well in transition.
Yeah.
Good defender. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, a ton of NBA upside for both of them, though. So, I I really like the potential of. I mean, yes, I mentioned Dylan Dessou, so I'll start there. I mean, if he can get right, he's a good he's a good 3-point shooter for a center. I mean, if he can shoot north of 35%, I that's always been my mark of like average to above average, kind of the Mendoza line of 3-point shooting,
Yeah.
if you will. Um, Texas is going to need floor spacing. I keep mentioning it. He was not blocking many shots last season, so without harping on the same stuff, I think Dylan Dessou could have a much improved season. Texas needs that. I mean, the other player I'm going to go with here, just because I think his role will, while it might not necessarily be expanded as much as one would like with this team. I mean, and this is kind of an easy answer here. I'm going to go with Dylan Mitchell because I like the options that he's going to have for scoring the basketball. Texas is going to need him to do a lot of things offensively to score. They did just too many times last season where, like, you see Courtney Ramey go dry, you see Marcus Carr go dry from the field. Timmy Allen's getting doubled; he can't do anything from the paint. So with that, like, to free up the offense, Dylan's going to have to be able to score from the mid range. He's going to be able to have to find his 3-point shot. I mean, Tyrese and Carr like to kind of live above the arc, so maybe around the elbow, and so Mitchell might have some shot or chances from the corner. He got a lot of explosiveness off the dribble, so maybe able to get to the rim there. Just a few examples, but and I mean he's also got the physical tools to be a really good defender. So he's gonna have all the opportunities in the world to break out, and he's obviously got all the talent in the world, but I don't know. I don't know what really realistic expectations are from him this season. So, and I'll kind of use that as a segue here to get into the next piece, which is where we think, like, statistically, some of the best players on this team are going to be. I'd like to name here the leaders for points, rebounds, and assists per game, and I'll kind of give my three. I mean, I think assists is going to end up going to Tyrese Hunter just because he's going to be the primary ball handler. It was Carr last season, right?
Yeah, Carr was the guy. Yeah.
Okay. But there was no one that was really, you were mentioning alpha earlier. There was like no one that was like, yeah, this is my offense. This is my team.
No, there wasn't. And yeah, that was the problem. And because of the stagnation that happens so often, you would see a switch up at point guard all the time, like who was bringing it up between Carr, Ramey, Jones, and even a little bit of TA.
Yeah, as long as it's just he was a good on-ball defender, but as long as it wasn't Devin Askew in the settled half court. Yeah. But I think for rebounds for me is the most interesting one because I think that shows who's going to end up getting the most minutes playing at the 5. I mean, Timmy Allen's probably an easy answer, but I'm still going to go Christian Bishop. I think he's probably still looking, like, especially if he is the starting center for most of the season, he's probably looking around 6 or 7 a game.
Yeah.
Are you kind of in the same boat on that?
So assists, I completely agree. I think it's going to be Hunter just based on the fact that he's going to get his ball or the ball in his hands most of the time, and he's a really good passer. Texas fans are going to be, I think, pleasantly surprised when they see how he can pass in both the half court and transition game. When it comes to rebounds, I'm actually going to go with Dylan Mitchell just because of his offensive rebounding prowess. I think there's a chance he can average 2 to 3 offensive rebounds a game. And if he gets, 3 on the defensive end, there's 6 right there. So like you mentioned, in the front court, it's going to be about, the minute allocation is really what it kind of comes down to on rebounds. But I love Mitchell's burst. I think he has one of the best second bursts I've seen. Obviously, completely different body type than Oscar Tshiebwe at Kentucky. But what Tshiebwe does so well and is why you always see him finishing, especially last season and at West Virginia, with 15 points and 18 rebounds. Is he's not the most efficient right around the rim, but he keeps the ball high and he has a great second burst, getting that extra rebound. So if he misses the layup, he normally is always the guy to grab it. I think Mitchell is in that same boat that he has a very good second burst, and I think we're gonna see that, and it'll pay dividends when it comes to the offensive glass. But I think like you mentioned, Allen. I think Allen, Bishop, and Mitchell will all be pretty close, and hopefully, if Dessou stays healthy, he'll be up in that mix as well.
Yeah, because I will say, if Dessou is, I've seen some depth charts that have Dessou as the starting five, and as you mentioned, he was the starting center in the Arkansas. If he is the starting center this season, without a doubt, if he stays healthy, it's going to be Dessou, because he led the team in rebounding percentage last season. And in rebounds per 40, he was a little shy of 12.
Wow.
Per 40. So, yeah, I mean, he was even ahead of Bishop in that regard. I just think from playing time perspective, I don't think he's quite going to get there.
I agree. He led the SEC his sophomore year, too, with like 9.1 a game. So he certainly has the traits and the ball skills, and has proven that. So,
yeah,
any of those four guys are very realistic candidates to lead the team in rebounding.
Yeah, that's true. It is impressive, too, that like Dessou, coming off the knee injury, had less balance in his game, but his rebounding percentage actually still improved year over year from his last year at Vandy to, which is, I don't know if that's a Texas issue or if his positioning just got better.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about. There's some numbers like that where you just kind of have to scratch your head and chalk it up to the wind. It's hard to figure out.
Yeah, that's true. So, all right, points. I'm gonna say Carr. Here's why. I don't see who's going to be taking the 3-point shot a ton for this team, because I think the first two answers off ball right now are going to be Dylan Mitchell and, well, I mean, Marcus Carr still. Yeah, I think it's going to be the main answers right now are Carr, Mitchell, and then Dessou. But there's no clear answer. So I think, especially early in the season, Carr's going to be chucking up a lot of shots still.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was going to go and am going with Marcus Carr as well. I mean, he was 0.7 points behind Timmy Allen last season. We saw what he did at Minnesota. I think he averaged like nearly 18 or 19 points per game. And you mentioned it right there. With the loss of Jones, Ramey, and Febris, you're losing like 11 3-point attempts per game. Certainly some of those are going to come at the hands of Marcus Carr, who is one of the more capable shooters from deep on this roster, which unfortunately shows, the lack of outside confidence I have in this team, I guess you could say. But yeah, I think off pure volume, it'll be Carr. The only reason, not the only reason, but I think someone could go Allen because he gets to the line so often. If Allen's averaging 4 or 5 free throw attempts a game, that certainly would boost his numbers up. But yeah, I expect Carr to improve his percentage from deep, which was 33.8 last season. Hopefully that's up near, 36, 37% this year. And like you said, it's a volume game when it comes to scoring, especially in college basketball. And I expect Carr to be taking about 10 to 12 shots a game, which would be up from last season. So, yeah, I think I completely agree with you on that one.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on this front of like 3-point shooting is it's interesting. Brock Cunningham led the team in 3-point percentage last season, 48%, and he was 11 of 23. So like it wasn't like, I mean, he wasn't taking a ton, but I do remember he was improved in that regard. I mean, never is he going to be your spot up like your your go-to 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if maybe they're going to try him out from deep a little bit more. I mean, he's going to get minutes.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to play. I think the good thing that we saw I just think he's become more confident with his shot because he does get left open on the offensive end a fair amount. And I mean, if you look at his highlights at Westlake, he was a very comfortable player on the offensive end. So surprised it hasn't transitioned as well or as seamless as he would have liked. But yeah, I think even if the percentage goes down a little bit, I want him to see him take more threes, because if he's shooting 38% from deep, that is good offense. If Brock Cunningham shooting a shot that he's making 38% of the time, which a 3-point shot, is good offense for this Texas team.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if he'll kick out to the outside a little bit more to free up some space inside, especially if he's on the court with guys like Dylan Mitchell or Timmy Allen, Christian Bishop a lot that are, really living more in the paint on offense.
Yeah, and I don't have the charts pulled up, but it seemed like he was knocking down a lot of his threes from the corner. So, yeah, I think that could help space the floor. And I know he made at least one again. Yeah, he was 2 for 2 from deep against Arkansas. So, good start.
Be our white PJ Tucker.
Yes, I think that is apt. That is very apt comparison.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be interesting. Okay, because we might have to end up splitting this up into 2 parts. So
Okay.
let's